Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul. Great to have all of you back here with us across our great affiliates, 98.3, The Live, WKAN, 105.5, The Ticket, ACTV, JTV, WJOB, and Cities 92.9 Talk FM. I'm Jon Zaghloul. John Meadows is directing and producing. Great to be back here with all of you. You can follow us all over at Sports Talk Chicago and hit us up on YouTube. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel at Sports Talk Chicago as well. Back with us for another segment. Great to have him still here with us. Mark Schanowski, of course, sports reporter at ABC 7, host of the Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast with Stacey King, and one of the play-by-play voices of Bulls basketball on TV. So, Mark, we were talking about Bulls at the end of last segment. We will continue here. The trade deadline's coming up. We discussed kind of Zach LaVine and potentially DeMar DeRozan getting moved. I guess my question to that would be this. Let's say they move DeRozan, which you said could be more likely. How would that affect the Bulls in terms of their rest of the season outlook? Are they still going to be a playoff team if they were to trade DeRozan, or is that a signal of they're going to kind of be sellers and maybe move down in those standings in the second half of the season?
Well, I think ownership and management have made it pretty clear that they do not want to descend towards the bottom of the East and go into a full-on rebuild. I think any trades they make will be looked at to maybe, recouping some of the draft capital that they've traded in both the Vucevic and DeRozan deals, but also to maintain a competitive roster. DeRozan's making about $25 million this season, and you're going to have to take one or two players back in any trade that you make. So you're going to get some players back if you decide to trade DeMar. Caruso, of course, is making a lot less. He's only making about $9-10 million. So, that trade, you might try to get a first-round pick and then maybe just a contract salary filler to match the money. But if they do trade DeMar, I think they would be looking at trying to get back maybe a power forward so you could shift Patrick Williams to the 3, where I think he'd be more effective, and maybe have more size. We've seen throughout the first half of the season, and really since Billy Donovan's been here, he likes to go with the small lineup with one center and 3 or 4 guards. And sometimes that hurts you both on defense and on the rebounding angle. And I think that if they do trade DeMar, maybe you bring back some size where you could have a different looking lineup. A lot of people have talked about a potential Zach LaVine trade to the Lakers, and they're talking about, D'Angelo Russell coming back. Well, to me, that makes no sense because Kobe White has emerged this year as a bona fide top-level point guard. If you brought D'Angelo Russell in to steal minutes away from Kobe, you're just going to limit, his continued development. So I think that would be a non-starter. If you traded DeRozan to the Lakers, he's from L.A., he's had some interest in going there in the past. Maybe you get back Rui Hachimura and Jared Vanderbilt. The money's kind of this would match up pretty well. That would give you 2 guys that can play the power forward position. And I think that you'd have a more athletic team, a team that could play at this faster pace that Billy Donovan's talked about. And I think it's a trade that could potentially work out for both teams because as long as LeBron is in LA still playing basketball, he's going to try to win championships. And I think he would be thrilled to add a guy like DeMar DeRozan to their squad.
You also make a great point about D'Angelo Russell and Kobe White. And I mean, how do you explain what Kobe White's done this year? Because, for me, I don't think anybody expected this production from him, right? So how do you explain Kobe White's ascension here this season for the Bulls?
Well, it's really a testament to his hard work. He came into the league after 1 year at North Carolina at 19 years old, very inexperienced. And then we had the Lonzo Ball injury, and immediately it was like, well, can Kobe White replace Lonzo Ball? And that was a tough comparison for him because Ball in his half season with the Bulls was just through the roof outstanding. So it's hard for anybody to come in and pick up right where Ball left off. But to Kobe's credit, a couple of his weaknesses, he didn't have a good handle. He was a little bit turnover prone, and he wasn't very good at finishing at the rim. He'd get shots blocked or he would miss shots from close range. He worked extremely hard in both areas. He went to a private coach these last 2 summers who just drilled him day after day, tightening up his handle, getting him more confident in finishing over taller defenders with floaters and shooting the ball from different angles. And he's become a completely different player on the offensive end. He's also become more of a leader. I don't know if you've noticed, you see it some of the timeouts, it's Kobe White who's very vocal and exhorting guys that, this is where you got to go. You got to do this on offense, this on defense. And he's still only 23. But he's a guy that's not afraid to take on that leadership role. And he's made enormous strides. And I think that's what gives the Bulls front office, the confidence to maybe go out and trade for veteran pieces rather than trying to complete rebuild, because they've got a young point guard who's under contract for 2 more years after this at a very team-friendly level. They'll have to get Patrick Williams re-signed, but they've got the makings of a shell of a team with Zach LaVine still only being 28, 29 years old. That they've got 3 starters in place. It's a question of what can they do to get more athleticism and maybe more size around those guys.
What's your expectation for the Bulls for the rest of this season, then moving forward with DeRozan's contract being up, LaVine still being under contract? You mentioned Patrick Williams may need to get re-signed. I mean, what's the end game here for this specific group of guys?
Well, with DeRozan, he's in his 15th season, and he'll turn 35 before the start of next year. So you really have to wonder. I mean, he's been incredible since he's come to Chicago. He's played at an all-star level. His shooting percentage is down a little bit this year, but he's still averaging 22 points a game. He's been fantastic with the younger guys in terms of being a leader. But we've seen it reported from all the beat guys that the Bulls and DeRozan's camp are far apart on a contract extension. You'd hate to see him walk away and go to the Lakers or some other contending team for nothing. We've seen that in the past with different guys, whether it was Joakim Noah or Pau Gasol. Guys just walking out and you get nothing back for an all-star caliber player. So if they can't bridge the gap in terms of an extension that works for both sides, I think it's almost incumbent on them to try to work out a trade where DeMar can go to a contending situation that would make him happy, and the Bulls can get some assets back that would help them stay competitive both now and into the future. If Kobe White continues to improve, they do have their first-round draft pick this year. I'm not saying that they're on the verge of contending for a title, but they're certainly not ready to fall to the bottom of the East either. So, a lot of people will tell you the worst thing to be is in between. You hate to be that 7-8 seed where you don't get a great draft pick, but you don't have a chance to win the championship. Unfortunately, that's where the Bulls are now. And, unless you win the lottery or get a trade that really works out big time in your favor, it's going to be hard to get from where they are now to being one of the top 4 teams in the East.
Mark Schanowski here with us on Sports Talk Chicago. Jon Zaghloul, John Bedo's directing and producing. Mark, let's get to some Bears talk now. Lots of stuff's been going on. What's your take on the Bears' decision to retain Matt Eberflus and fire Luke Getsy?
I kind of expected that would be the case. I know that there's a lot of respect for Matt Eberflus among the players in the locker room. I also know that Ryan Poles has spoke glowingly about the job Eberflus has done despite the win-loss record. And, of course, they finished well. They won 6 of the last 8, or maybe it was 5 of the last 8. And then they showed a lot of improvement, especially on the defensive end, with Eberflus taking over as the de facto defensive coordinator. That side of the ball, they really improved a lot. They were among the league leaders in takeaways over the second half of the season. So I fully expected that Eberflus would be retained. And the key is going to be to get it right with the offensive coordinator. A lot of people said that this would be the 3rd offensive coordinator in 4 years for Justin Fields. But, of course, that's the next question. We don't know if Justin Fields is going to be back. They need to improve on that side of the ball. And I think that the first step is getting in a creative, forward-thinking offensive coordinator who can utilize his players' strengths and not be kind of tied to his lineup, his play card. Obviously, Luke Getsy was the quarterback coach in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. He was working with a superstar quarterback who made it look easy at times, and I think maybe that influenced some of his thoughts in working with a young quarterback, because I thought Getsy kind of put the shackles on Fields for a lot of the last 2 seasons where there weren't many downfield throws called, even though I think that's one of Fields' strengths. A lot of sideways passes, a lot of design runs for the quarterback where Fields was taking a lot of big hits. Justin has faults as well. He's not the best at making secondary reads and getting rid of the ball when there's nothing there. He took a lot of sacks. That did improve over the last half of the season. So, tough decision for Ryan Poles. Do you stick with Fields, or do you draft a guy that many consider a generational prospect in Caleb Williams? I'm sure he's going to be getting a ton of phone calls from quarterback-needy teams with all kinds of offers for that number 1 pick. And at the end of the day, he did mention in his end-of-the-year press conference he may take it into April before he decides whether or not he's going to trade that number 1 pick and keep Fields, or he's going to use it on a quarterback.
So based on what you've seen from Fields, in addition to the language coming out about Caleb Williams, how do you think the Bears should approach this situation?
Well, I think because of the prospective draft haul that they could get in a trade for the number one pick, and the fact that Fields has some unique talents in terms of his athleticism, my personal opinion, this is just me, I would keep Fields, continue to develop him with a new coordinator and an offensive system designed around him. Then I would take that number one pick and trade it. You might be able to get 3 number ones, a couple of number twos, and then you could get another wide receiver. You could solidify that offensive line that's been very shaky at times. You could get another edge pass rusher, and I think you could have a team that next season would be in position to compete with Detroit and Green Bay for the NFC North division. I think you could turn it around that quickly if you make that trade. If you bring in Caleb Williams and he turns out to be good but not great, then you've missed on the opportunity to maybe add 5 starting caliber players in the next couple of drafts.
I do like that perspective, actually, the way you kind of put it with the first round picks. In terms of next year overall, depending on what the Bears do with that number one pick, I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong on your perspective, that playoffs should be on the table no matter what, considering they've decided to retain Eberflus and Poles is still at the helm as well.
Well, you look at the way it's gone this year, it doesn't take all that much to make the expanded playoffs. Green Bay got in at 9-8, and then, of course, they shocked the world by just destroying the Cowboys in Dallas the other day, which was really a shocker to me. And, you see teams in the other conference making it at 9-8. So you don't have to, the jump from the Bears from 7-10 to 9-8, you're not asking a whole lot. You're looking to win 2 more games. Detroit looks like a team I think's got some staying power. Dan Campbell, who the nation got to know through the Hard Knock series a couple of years ago, has done a tremendous job instilling confidence in that young team. And I think Detroit will be a team to be reckoned with. Green Bay, Jordan Love, it's a small sample size. He's played really well. I don't know that we can say he's the next in the great line of Green Bay quarterbacks, but I think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. And the Vikings could be a team that's going into rebuild mode with Kirk Cousins a free agent, and they kind of took a step back this year. I think the Bears, if they play their cards right with the draft, and don't forget they have a lot of cap space, they could also add some impact players in free agency. I think they should be in a situation where if they can't wrestle the division away from Detroit, I think they'd have a chance to compete for a playoff spot next season.
Mark Schanowski still here with us on Sports Talk Chicago. A few more questions here for you, Mark, before we finish up and let you go. You're calling a ton of Bulls play-by-play this year. We've talked at length in past episodes of this program about your desire to call play-by-play. You've done great. You call Windy City Bulls as well, obviously. Just tell me about that transition for you into getting more play-by-play assignments and knocking them out of the park.
Well, thank you for the kind words. It's really been a blessing. When I got into this business, I did want to be an NBA play-by-play broadcaster, but those jobs are few and far between. And at that point, there wasn't really a minor league system where you could get involved, trying to work your way up by doing what was first the CBA, then the D League, and now, of course, it's called the G League. But, it's just been a unique set of circumstances that have given me this opportunity. And I'm very grateful to the Bulls for giving an old guy a shot at doing something new. It's been so much fun working with Stacy, who I have a great relationship. I covered him as a player. We got to know each other. We did a season of pre and post before he was brought onto the broadcast team. And then, of course, we do the podcast together, which we've done for 3 years now. We have a great time doing it. So I hope that some of that chemistry comes across on the air during the broadcast. And the Bulls have been very kind to me and giving me more opportunities. And obviously, with Adam's schedule, he has to be in whatever NFL city that he's going to call a game in on Saturday for production meetings. And the Bulls have had games almost every Saturday. So they had a need for someone to fill in. And with Jason Benetti leaving the organization, that opportunity was available. And I was so thankful that I got the chance to do those games. Adam will probably take it the rest of the way, but as they know, I'm only a phone call away if they need me.
I was asked this by somebody on Twitter, so I have to ask you this because you mentioned Jason Benetti walking away. Is there any interest for you in the White Sox play-by-play job?
I have never done baseball play-by-play, and I know the White Sox are looking for a top-level play-by-play voice, so I am not a candidate for that position. But thank you for the asking. I appreciate the question.
Well, because I remember, you did pre and post for the White Sox and WGN there for a time, which obviously also sounded great. So I did want to put that out there because I was a couple of people actually asked me about it and said, hey, will you ask Mark this? And maybe we could break some news. I don't know. But we now know that you were not in contention for that. That's totally okay. And then what about the Windy City Bulls, too? Obviously, a great production you guys have over there. You're recruiting people from the Bulls pre- and post-game show to come on out with you. I think that's amazing. I know some of the games air on NBC Sports Chicago. So how's that been this year as well?
It's been a lot of fun. NBC Sports Chicago is doing 8 games live, and on those 8 games, I've either got Kendall Gill or Will Perdue to join me to provide the analysis. And then the other games are streamed either on ESPN Plus or the GLeague.com site. And that gives the opportunity for fans who want to cover it to watch it. In today's age, everything's available. It's just a question of how determined you are to find it. And, the NBA G League site, it's still the same quality broadcast. It's just you're watching it on your computer or your phone rather than watching it on your television set. So just want to let everybody know that all the home games are available. You just have to search it out if it's not on NBC Sports Chicago. But we've had a lot of fun doing it. Julian Phillips has played a number of games, and I think that the Bulls, like a lot of organizations, have been forward-thinking and giving some of their young guys who aren't in the rotation the opportunity to play meaningful minutes at the G League level and develop their skills. It's helped with Dalen Terry, and I know it's helping with Julian Phillips. And the young guy from Connecticut, Adama Sanogo, he's been a monster. He's had 2 straight games of over 30 points and 10 rebounds. He's a little bit undersized. They list him at 6'9", might be closer to 6'8", but, he's got a big heart. And I was surprised when Vooch was hurt that they didn't give him a chance to back up Drummond. But I guess Billy wanted to go with experience rather than give the rookie a shot.
The Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast is also super successful. And I saw the Score put out something about it. You guys are still with Odyssey, great partnership there. How has that progressed from when you guys started, which I remember, to where it is today?
It's been funny. I've learned a lot about podcasting over the last 3 years. One thing that I learned is there's too many of them out there. I mean, everybody does a great job, I'm sure, and they're all, hoping to make it big. But there's just too much clutter out there. For any team that you cover, you could probably find 10 or 12 different podcasts, especially in a market as big as Chicago. So we're fighting the good fight, and we're trying to reach more people. But we've had a tough time getting those overall numbers to grow. We'll keep at it. I would tell your audience that Stacey's a great storyteller, and it's not just X's and O's about basketball. There's a lot of Stacey's personality that comes through in the show. And like this week, we're going to have John Sally on. John Sally also has a huge personality. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. That show is tomorrow. It's live on YouTube at 5:30, and then it's available on all the major podcast carriers the following morning, which would be Friday. So, we're continuing to try to get big name guests and trying to grow the show. It's just tough with so many podcasts out there. But, our intention is to keep going and hopefully find new viewers and new subscribers out there.
Well, that's great to hear. Everybody, Give Me the Hot Sauce podcast all over. It's a great show. And Mark, I appreciate you joining me. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Great Bears analysis, great Bulls analysis, and we're looking forward to watching you on ABC7, of course, doing Bulls play-by-play, Windy City play-by-play, and Give Me the Hot Sauce. It's always a pleasure, my friend. I love having you on. Thank you so much.
Well, John, thank you so much, and congratulations on the success of your show. I know that you're expanding to more and more stations. I know the show will continue to grow with your great work.